Here folks, quick addendum to my previous Conduit visit, as while exploring soulbinds I have realised that there is some room for 3 potency in some routes, so we're going to look at them, and since some of them involve balance affinity's Eclipse mechanic, we're going to look at that too. So let's get started. So Feral is easy, Sudden Ambush is the third best after your Covenant ability and the Fury of the Skies. We looked at that last time, but what about balance? Balance has 2 options, Umbral Intensity and Stellar Inspiration, both of them affecting Eclipse. So let's talk about that. Eclipse is not mentioned in any balance affinity abilities. There is no passive, but it does exist. It is a buff that applies whenever you cast 2 of either Wrath or Starfire, which will reduce the cast time of the other by 8% for 15 seconds, as well as either increase its damage by 20% for Wrath or the AoE component for Starfire by 100%. Once the Eclipse ends, casting 2 more of the previous Eclipse spell will trigger the other Eclipse. Your Eclipses must alternate, you cannot trigger the same twice in a row. So for Resto DPS, Eclipse works similar to Feral Affinity's combo point spenders. They are a way to reward time spent on damage, unlike Moonfire and Sunfire, which are fire and forget. Eclipse and combo points require constant input. So which of Umbral Intensity and Stellar Inspiration will be better? Well, Umbral increases the effect of Eclipses by 20%, that being 20% of the buff, so 23% for Wrath and 119% for Starfire. Stellar causes Star Surge to occasionally buff Moonfire or Sunfire, or trigger an Eclipse. But, in my testing, none of those ever happened. Using a Conduit from another spec can be iffy, we saw that with Azurite powers, but honestly I feel this was always going to be the worst anyway, compared to Umbral. Umbral is easier to use. Simply cast 2 spells in a row and get a buff on the others. That is the only setup required, but how good is it? It is important to remember that the Starfire bonus only applies to its AoE component. The original target takes no extra damage. To be fair, we'll assume 2 targets and we'll get these figures. We'll take these and simulate a 45-second window of dealing damage and we will get this DPS increase. We'll also add in Sudden Ambush and Fury of the Skies and see how they compare. Remember, this is only the Conduit taken into account, not the overall DPS. Here we can see that Fury is still ahead, and this does not take into account that Fury only requires 10 global cooldowns to get that increase, rather than a near 45 seconds of constant ability usage, or the fact that as balance affinity the increase would go up even more. The real question though is, are they worth it for a 3rd potency slot? In my opinion, no. To get such minor figures you need to drop a lot of healing. Fury is fair because even during the most intensive parts you'll probably find time for Sunfire at the very least, but that's no such luck with Eclipses or finishers. So while in theory the 3rd best are Sudden Ambush and Umbral Intensity, you'd realistically get more from either a different Soulbind route or picking up a Resto Conduit so you could spend less time healing and more time DPSing. That is what makes Resto and its DPS interesting to me. Raw figures don't mean anything compared to a real scenario, and that scenario constantly changes with every new dungeon, boss, pull. I value flexibility a lot, and these Conduits are not it. Next time we will be doing the Covenant deep dives, starting with the Necrolords. I plan on going rather in depth, so we'll see how long that takes. Until then, thanks for watching.